my mother, she died very young, but she was one of the second generation of women who was a doctor, and then later on she studied at Freud in Austria, and she became a psychoanalyst. But through her, I could say we have lived quite, in a way, unsecure, strange life. I had a brother who was 2 years older. So I am born in Switzerland, and my first years as a child I lived in France, and then very, very short in Sweden, and then for a longer time in Austria. And then in Austria, by Freud, my mother met a Dutch doctor, so she married him, so we went to Holland, and I lived in Rotterdam in Holland. And I am in the age that I have been through the whole war, in last World War, in Rotterdam. And because my mother was Jewish, there was lots of problems, of course. And then it is a very, very long story, but in the end of the war, my brother and I, my mother and stepfather were in Berlin. So I came to Sweden just in the end of the war. But I think has been the best thing in my childhood, and that was the time in Holland, because in Holland you had at school 9 years French, 6 years English, 5 years German, 6 years Latin, 5 years Greek, and then also Javanese and South African. And that's, in a way, I don't speak all the languages very well, some of them yes, and that has opened the world for me. And I started out very early to be interested in art and in books. So I have 2 professions where I have been making career. One is pottery and sculpture. So I have made quite a lot of big walls here in Sweden, reliefs. And the other one is theater, and that is costumes, the design, and the lighting. And so I have worked more or less all over Europe in different theaters, and also not only in Europe, in Cuba, and in Vietnam, and so on. And then it happens that I met my second husband, and his name was, because he doesn't live any longer, Peter Weiss. And Peter Weiss came to Sweden because, his parents came to Sweden because they were Jewish, and so he was here in Sweden. He was a painter, and he made films. We made films together, and he was a writer. And strange enough that he has become, after that he was about 45, 50, one of the most well-known German writers. And we have made quite a lot of theater together. And it's not because husband and wife, it's because we both knew what this work would be, you know. And it's quite funny because now they are making quite a fuss about Ingmar Bergman, but I worked with him 18 years, 9 years in Sweden, and then when he fled from Sweden because of very stupid things, he went to Munich, and because I do speak German as my own language, it was very practical for him that I also made then, let's say, the costumes, the sceneries, the lightnings, and so on. And at the same time, Peter, in English you say Peter, but here we say Peter and I were very politically involved, not only here in Sweden, but very long time also in Germany. So we made quite a lot of political theater in Germany and also here in Sweden. So, and then if I go back until I was 18, 19, I had a very short marriage with a man who made beautiful drawings, but he was not a beautiful husband. But with him, I do have a son, Mikael, and we work quite a lot together, you know. And then when Peter came into my life, he had already 2 children. So we said, no children, because then you cannot work so much as we did. But after, I think it was after 25 years, Nadia was born. You know, from the beginning, when I met Peter, we always spoke Swedish because he learned quite fantastic Swedish. He didn't know that I could speak German. And when he had friends that came from Germany, and they had to speak French or, English with me, because I promised myself after the war I will never more say a German word, because I've been through the whole war. But then after 7 years, Peter got a very honorable thing in Germany and said, you cannot go with me because you don't speak German. And then I opened my mouth and he got very angry. And we have worked together and lived not very easy. And I think no relationship is easy. But we lived 30 years together, and he died, and after that I never found somebody else. And I had my children also, and my work, and quite hard working. Yeah, short story. I must say I have always had the freedom that if I didn't like it and they were too rough and tough, I always have said goodbye, here you can stay. And I think that is very important. You have to be appreciated for what you're doing, your job, and how you, the choices you have, and so on, and not because you are a woman or because you are a man. Yeah, you have to write about it, you have to make demonstrations about it, and you have to, in every place where you work, discuss it. You have to start from the small to the big, you know. You have to work politically, that is very, very important. I've worked politically since I was 18, and that's absolutely necessary. You have to work economically, fighting for that you have the equal job, the equal amount money you are getting, and so on. I have good luck that I still can work, you know. But if you can go on and use your minds, I think that's very important. So I would say I'm a lucky person. You can work together and appreciate each other and not say you cannot do that because you are a woman or do that because you are a male. You have to fight for it. You have already to start in the nursery, you have to start in the schools and so on. And there we have, of course, the difference. The women are waiting the baby. And here in Sweden, I think, you know, now also the father can take as long time as the woman to take care of the children, and that has been not easy at all, because then you have to change the laws, you have to change also the work for the male. But I think in the long run, it is so much better that the father has to take care physically his child and not only educationally. I think the freedom for women has also to do that you have 1 or 2 or perhaps 3 children, and then that the difference is that also the male here can make the choice to be at home 1 year and so on. So it is the whole society that has to change. I can also see that lots of male, of young male, even older, they have not only to learn, but they have also they have to accept the changing society at the same time. It can be very good for them too, you know, this change, where the females are responsible for many things, you know, so that you can, on the same level, work together. Yeah, it started out with the fight, the whole relationship, because he had written an article about, he made a performance about Ibsen, and a very good friend of mine had made a fantastic scenery and so on, and costumes and so on, and then Ingmar wrote in the newspaper, the only thing you need in the theater is an actor and a stage and nothing more. Was of course nonsense. So I wrote a long article about what set design is, and I went back historically and so on, and went to Dagens Nyheter, the newspaper here, and at that time you left the article there, and then I went back to Dramaten because I had another work there with an actor. And just when I'm going into Dramaten, I met Ingmar, and so I said, I will translate it, just when you see the devil, you step on his tail. He went angry and said, why do you say that? And I said, because I just had given Dagens Nyheter this article. And then he screamed, go back and pick it up again, you cannot do that. I said, never, never. And then we went in, and then suddenly he said to me, there was a Swedish writer, has written quite a good play, and he said, I'm going to make Lars Forssell play, and I want you to do the design for it. Yes, I said, but I will read the play first before I say yes. And then he screamed, when I say that you should do it, then do it. No, say, I have to read it. And then I read the book, the play. It's quite a good play. So I said to Ingmar, I'm going to do it. Yes, and then he said, I will see how much pain you can go through. And after that, we worked all the years. And then, of course, in everything it comes an end. So then after 18 years, not all the time, but 2 or 3 plays every year. And an interesting time, and lots of people said, how is it possible that you are political, you have made lots of political plays, Peter is politically. How can you work with somebody who is absolutely without political mind? And I said, this is a difference because Ingmar was a real theater person. So even if it was not politically, was it directly very, very interesting to work with him. So at the same time, I had the politically with Peter and others, and I had that other thing with Ingmar. But he was for many reasons an impossible person.